podcast devoted to analyzing films and what makes a movie a movie. I am your host, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, a filmmaker, podcaster, and lover of cinema. Today, I am joined once again for our second part in our three-part discussion by my friend Luis Gerardo Garcia. I've said before, they are a nurse and also another lover of movies. And they have selected for this week Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Hey, Luis, how are you doing today?
Hi, hi everyone. Doing all right. Doing all right. Doing good. I feel happy, content, good life today. Good day today. Sorry, that's what I meant. So yeah, I feel good. How are you?
I'm doing good, bro. Pretty good.
Cool, cool. Cool.
Yeah, really excited to talk about this movie. Oh man, it has been so long since I've seen this movie,
Yeah.
and just being able to, it's like rediscovering like your favorite like
Mhm.
present that you got
Mhm.
like as a kid. It's just like I just
The the
yeah
goosebumps, huh?
yeah
Yeah, I've got those too when done seeing the movie.
yeah. I just like it's just it's been great. Last week we did our discussion on Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and today we're
Mhm.
going to be looking at Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. If you weren't here last week, we are doing a three-part series for this, so we are doing the all three films. And like last week, we did the first one. Today we're going to be doing the second one, and next week we will be doing the final film in this trilogy, War for the Planet of the Apes, or for now as we wait patiently for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So
Mhm.
but yeah, man. Anything fun happened today, Luis? I know they were recording this a while
Yeah.
before it drops for the people. But when you were recording this, everything okay? What's going? Yeah.
Every like in my personal life. Yeah, absolutely. I had a good day, very busy day, very long day, but obviously that goes with the kind of work that I do. But yeah, it was okay. So I went to the well, I was gonna go. Well, I did go to the gym. So I went to the gym. I went to go and put on my workout clothes and stuff, and then I realized that I forgot it. So I was like, dang. So it kind of like, you know, it kind of put a damper in my mood. So I had to leave and stuff like that. But it's okay. We can get it tomorrow. It's okay. But
Yeah.
apart from that, it was a great day. Yeah, it was very like mundane. Didn't really do much, which is ideal for Mondays. You know, if you're in healthcare, if you're in general, right? Mondays are always like the most busy days you can get.
Yeah.
So for it being a mundane day today, it was like okay, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had a good day, bro.
Yeah.
I was the same here. Just worked, came back home, watched a little bit of TV, waited for my
Mhm.
brother to get back, went to the gym, took the dogs out, went to the gym, and we're here. I just got done doing our review of Last of Us episode 7 with Chillzone and Luis over there.
Mm.
So now we're
I've been
just
meaning to watch that one.
oh, fantastic show, man.
It looks like a great show. And then Pedro Pascual is the
Oh
lead
yeah,
in that one, right?
yup, him and Bella Ramsey. You'll remember her
Oh,
as Lady Mormont
yeah,
from
that's
what's
what
it
I was
called
gonna
Game of
say.
Thrones. Yeah,
She looks
yeah,
familiar. Uh-huh.
yeah. Well, yeah, my friends, I thank you all so much for the love on the last episode. I hope that you all are doing well. I have been having a lot of fun doing these discussions, right? In this discussion right now with Luis, as we did our last episode. I had a lot of fun editing that and what's it called putting it together because I think that we did get into a really good conversation. And today I think that we might be getting into an even better one because this movie is just, if not better, than the last one. But with that said, we have never properly introduced you all to the filmmaker known as Matt Reeves. So
Mhm.
I have to go ahead and just sit for a minute here and do a little bit of an introduction to you all about Matt Reeves. Then we will go ahead and introduce the film to you all, and we will get into our conversation. So just bear
Mhm.
with me, y'all. You already know how it goes. 2 seasons in, you should know how this goes. So Matt Reeves was born on April 27th, 1966, in Long Island, New York. But he moved with his family to Los Angeles at 5 years old. LA is what introduced him to his fascination with movies. Reeves, at age 8, would start to make movies with his friends with his wind up camera. For those of you who don't know what a wind up camera is, probably we're talking about like a Super 8. You would just hold it and you would just wind it so you can catch moving images. Their local public access TV station aired some of his and fellow friend J.J. Abrams short films. You
Mm.
may know J.J. Abrams from Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the movie Super 8. He's a pretty
Mhm.
famous guy. You know,
Mhm.
when they were teenagers, Steven Spielberg hired both of the boys to transfer some of the Super 8 footage to videotape, some of his own Super 8 footage to videotape. Matt Reeves graduated. Oh no, I'm sorry. Matt Reeves attended the University of Southern California and was a screenwriting student for Jeff Loeb, who has written a good amount of network TV in his time as a screenwriter. Reeves produced and developed projects that would land him an agent. Matt Reeves would go on to co-write Cloverfield, which he'd end up directing after graduating from USC. He would also go on to produce all of the other films in that series, like 10 Cloverfield Lane and The Cloverfield Paradox. In 1994, he made his directorial debut with the film Future Shock. He worked closely with J.J. Abrams as a showrunner and co creator of the show Felicity. It wasn't until 2008, though, that Matt Reeves would receive international acclaim with his science fiction film Cloverfield. Matt
Mm.
Reeves rose to more critical and commercial success with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in 2014 and War for the
Mhm.
Planet of the Apes in 2017. In 2017, though, Matt Reeves was hired to write and direct the upcoming Batman film for Warner Brothers. And in 2022, The Batman was finally released to critical and commercial acclaim. Currently, he is working on various projects and producing the Penguin spin off show based on the world that they're building within the Batman
Mhm.
films that they got going on. And of course, he is working on writing and directing the sequel to the Batman, which I believe has a set date for June 2025, if I'm correct. So, Matt Reeves has got his hands pretty full. But before we get into introducing this film, Luis, you have any impressions about Matt Reeves? Are you like I don't think I ever sat
Yeah.
down to ask you like what you thought about the Batman.
Well, first I'll give you a little bit of what I thought of the Batman. Um, Not my favorite Batman, but I can definitely say more on the realistic side, which is what I'm assuming Warner Bros. Is trying to go for. Realistic side of what Batman could be, including the Penguin being more of like a mob boss who is human but has his goons, able to do his work for him, stuff like that. I really enjoyed that Batman movie. I thought it was really dark. I thought it was like fitting for what Batman could be. So in terms of realism, I guess going back to like Christopher Nolan's is a little bit, I like it. I agree, and I think that his decisions on the Batman and how they're gonna carry it on, are really really cool. I like it. I think it's a great thing. However, if we continue with Matt Reeves as Batman, or in that project, I feel like Batman really wouldn't be able to stand up for anyone like, let's say Henry Cavill's Superman, right? Or obviously anything like that. Obviously, it's more like a Batman who fights like crime, like low level crime bosses and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But overall, though, in terms of his directing, beautiful. It was an amazing movie, and I really enjoyed that movie.
yeah. So what you're saying is that
And
Batman
then
wouldn't be able to take on what's his name Darkseid anytime soon.
not even no, not even in the realm of it. No, absolutely not. But that's okay. I mean, we're not introducing that. We're not like going for that, part or whatever. And then you were talking about his so I actually didn't know that he was the one that had directed Cloverfield, because Cloverfield is fucking, I'm sorry for the
No,
cursing,
you can
but
curse. We're
Cloverfield is amazing. I love that movie. Like, I actually had no idea that he was even part of that. Was
mm-hmm.
he also part of the spin-offs, the
The
Cloverfield
sequels. Oh, he only
yeah,
produced
right?
them. He didn't get to direct them.
He produced it. Okay, okay. Yeah, that one was a little bit, but the Cloverfield one, the original one, was amazing. I think that's awesome. And I can now see, now that you said, he did direct it, I can see the similarities in his directorial work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see the similarities that he uses in his films. So that makes a lot of sense. But very impressive. Very impressive director, and you can see his come up hasn't really been it's all recent. So I'm
Yeah,
curious to see how he goes after that, right? Like it wasn't until 2008
yeah,
that like he's actually making something that people are like now, oh wow, this guy is really cool or whatever, right?
yeah. I
So
mean,
I'm
just
really interested to see what he's gonna go with now. Yeah.
because he's such an interesting guy that I paid attention to since like
Uh-huh.
2017 when War for the Planet of the Apes came out, and like
Yeah.
I know, like there was just like, because if anybody remembers, like I mean, the plan was that Ben Affleck was going to write and direct that Batman film. He was
Correct.
going to star in that, and then obviously he steps down from writing and directing that. Matt Reeves comes in, he gets hired, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I will be Matt Reeves' Batman." And there's that period where we were like, well, actually, it looks like Ben is actually leaving the project, and there
Mm-hmm.
was all these rumors of like Jake Gyllenhaal was gonna play Batman. No, it was gonna be like, oh no, it's not Jake Gyllenhaal. It's gonna be, what's it called? What's his name from Mad Men? Um,
The
um,
handsome guy, the main
yeah,
lead.
yeah. I can't remember his name. Um,
I was gonna say Army Hammer, but not
no,
wrong guy.
not Army Hammer. Army Hammer
Uh,
actually, Luis, Army Hammer played Batman in a script that never happened, but it was a Justice League film that they were gonna make back in the
really?
day. It was gonna be directed by George Miller, who did Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
Yeah,
that one.
he was supposed to do that movie, Justice League. It was a Justice League film, and Army
Really?
Hammer was going to play Batman.
Oh wow, that would have been kind of weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
no. God bless him and call me by name, but not no.
yeah,
I don't. I wouldn't see him as Batman. No.
no, but
What's his
yeah,
name?
it
Huh?
was like he was supposed to be. It was supposed to be that guy from Mad Men, and like
Yeah.
all these things came about, and then I mean, Matt Reeves kept giving more information where he was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I really want to follow the world's greatest detective. He says, I want to make a
Mm-hmm.
noir. I want to make this
Mm-hmm.
feel like Hitchcockian. And just the moment he started saying those things, like even just the Batman fan in me, who, like, if anybody knows, my two favorite superheroes of all time are Daredevil and Batman. I love those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when I heard that man open his mouth, the nerd in me was just like, this guy knows exactly what he wants. Like, this guy knows
Right.
exactly what Batman is. Like, he's a detective. Like, we've never seen that before. And then just the other side of me, the film guy who loves movies so much, was like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy has a very clear, distinct vision. He knows what he really wants out of the look of what he wants to get from Gotham, and just I kept following the trajectory of Matt Reeves' career, and being able to revisit this movie today, I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
just goes to show, man, how really, like, because to me, I always say talent is only half of the battle when you direct. Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, like, I've had conversations with people at this point who like want to be directors, and all what the first thing they always say is like, I want to be in charge, and it's like that's not what directing is. And if you want to be in charge, then what's it called? You shouldn't be a director. You can go and become a principal if you want, but like a
Mm-hmm.
director, being in charge is only like a small portion of the work that directors do. You have to really understand the way that your film is going to connect to the audience, and the way that you're
Mm-hmm.
communicating what is being shown on the screen. And to me, Matt Reeves really does understand that, because he does that through a freaking movie with talking apes. Like what? Like oh my god, man. But yeah, man, Matt Reeves is a great director. He's an incredible director
Mm-hmm.
who only 15 years 15 years of having
Yeah.
this big come up, bro. Like
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, like
It's only up to recently. Like I said, it's just
yeah,
only up to recently where we're like, oh yeah, Matt Reeves, and we associate those big,
yeah,
and then everything he's produced post Cloverfield is like insane, insane budgets, insane movies, insane
yeah,
property title. Like it's awesome,
yeah,
and he's gonna do great, and
yeah.
I'm excited for that Penguin spin-off series.
Oh man, me too.
Are they
I
gonna keep Colin, what's his
mm,
name, Colin Farrell
Colin
as
Farrell,
the
yeah, Colin Farrell will
cool,
be the
cool.
Penguin. Yeah,
Great
uh,
performance on him, by the way, too. Didn't even know that was him until like you told me about it, I think.
completely unrecognizable. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
how that's not leading.
Accent, the
Yeah,
face, the mannerisms, very different.
yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's is he Irish?
Yes,
Isn't he
he's Irish.
Irish?
Yes, he's
Right?
Irish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well,
Great.
let me go ahead and introduce you all to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I have some stuff
Yeah.
here to read. So, Rick Jaffa planted a lot of clues for sequels within Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Though Rupert Wyatt wanted to grow and evolve the films and set them 8 years after the events of Rise in order to grow a new generation of apes. Wyatt also specifically wanted to explore the relationship between Koba and Caesar. In November 2011, though, Andy Serkis closed a seven-figure deal for a sequel. Then in May 2012, Scott Z. Burns was hired to rewrite Jaffa and Amanda Silver's script. On May 31st, 2012, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was finally announced. On October 1st of that same year, Matt Reeves was hired to replace Rupert Wyatt after concerns that he could not make the 2014 date in time. I did my research here. It really does seem
Mm.
like it wasn't anything where like they didn't want Rupert Wyatt to make the movie. It seems that just Rupert Wyatt was really concerned that he couldn't make the movie how he wanted it in
Mhm.
to make it in time for it to release in 2014. And that was it was just I guess it was just an amicable split there. So it wasn't any like bad blood there or anything. It was just simply
Mhm.
like, hey, I can't finish this movie in time. Not the way that I want to make it.
Mhm.
Uh, Mark Bomback was hired for another rewrite soon after Reeves was brought onto the project. James Franco, and Frida Pinto's characters did not return for the film, and were explained to have died due to the simian flu, which really does make a lot of sense. So there
Mhm.
was no bad blood there either. So this was way before we found out about the allegations against James Franco. So it wasn't because of that, because he wasn't in the film. Literally, they
Mm.
asked James Franco, and he said, I'm pretty sure I died because I'm in ground zero. That's literally what he said. I was in ground zero for
Yeah.
the disease. I pretty much died.
Yeah, that's probably what would happen. Mhm.
Yeah. Compared to Rupert Wyatt's vision, Matt Reeves decided to set Dawn 10 years after the events of Rise. Filming began in April 2013 in British Columbia and included other locations like New Orleans, Louisiana. The film was finally
Mhm.
released to critical and commercial acclaim on July 11th, 2014. And I will give you one little fun fact here, Luis.
Go ahead.
My big brother, he used to live in what's it called in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, yeah. Uh-huh.
He lived down the block where they shot that scene when the apes attacked the commune, the
Yeah.
compound.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
whole scene, he was right down the block, and he
Really?
heard that big explosion that they did, and it woke him up like that. He was like, "What the hell?" And yeah, he was just like, all of a sudden, like I hear this big tank just like explode.
Those are the advantages to living like in big cities, huh? Like
Yeah,
that's so cool. They get to see that. Yeah.
yeah. There were moments when we would go visit him in like in New Orleans where they were actually like filming some stuff in the streets for like
Yeah.
movies and stuff. But I
Mhm.
was just like, wow, like that's crazy. Like you were literally down the block from like Andy Serkis, Gary Oldman, and all these like
Matt
really
Reeves.
like
Yeah. Uh-huh.
big people who like are really impactful in like in Hollywood and movies and like you got to see like honestly one of the best scenes in that whole movie get filmed. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Mhm.
That's crazy. Um, but like I said, what's it called? We don't really concentrate on the review portion
Mm-mm.
of this film in this podcast, but
Right, right.
I do have to say, I remember when you kept telling me to watch these films. I remember you were like, dude,
Yeah.
like it's such a good trilogy. You're like, it's really good. It's my favorite film franchise and whatnot, right? And I was like, all
Mhm.
right. Like to me, I had never grown an interest in the original films from the '60s,
Mhm.
and to this day, I have yet to watch them. I had
Mhm.
only watched before this that Mark Wahlberg film, the one from Tim Burton, and I was just like, dude, if it's anything like that freaking Mark Wahlberg movie, I'm going to just absolutely lose it because I don't want it.
Mhm.
And at first, when I watched Rise, the first time, I liked it. I wasn't really as like
Mhm.
surprised with Rise, but everything to me changed with Dawn. Dawn
Yeah.
blew me away in a way that like I was still kind of developing my appreciation for film at the time, and I was just really mesmerized with like the cinematography choices that they make in Dawn,
Mhm.
like the
Mhm.
music. Like he brings in Michael Giacchino, who is one of to me if not the one of the greatest composers right now working. Like it's him, Louis Gorson, and you have some great people like other ones that are at the top of my head, like the guy who did the Northman, the guy who composed the Northman, freaking amazing
Mhm.
score. So I was blown away by this movie at the time, man. And I like to say that
And
on a rewatch, it's even better, man. This movie's even
right?
better. Like
And
it,
and then you can see the clear difference though for the CGI, for the hair, and the the expressions on the people's face,
yeah.
or the I'm sorry, the apes' faces. You can see a clear distinction between Rise and Dawn. Dude,
Mhm.
it's like game changing, dude. And
Yeah.
then that's why I was like, dude, this movie is insane. And then obviously like the acting in the movie and the plot and
Yeah.
everyone involved just put you can tell put their heart and soul into to this film, which is freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
And you can still see it, bro. We're still talking about it. What when it released, and now it's been what almost 10 years, and we're still talking about it.
That
You know
is
what I mean?
nuts to think about it
We're
like that.
still
Like
talking about it. Yeah.
we're still talking about 10 years later. We're still talking about it. Like this movie's gonna have a 10-year anniversary soon, and we're still
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. And like
Yep.
yeah, and like everybody, what's it called? Everybody when they talk about this, like they talk about the Batman, they were always like, "But did you watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?" Like that's like they were like that's where like you really saw the potential that came with the storyteller in this film, and just I
Mm-hmm.
to me when I watch this movie again, I just I it's like I said, it's like I rediscovered something that I loved so much in such a different part of my life because
Mm-hmm.
now like I have a different well I wouldn't say I have a different taste but like I have watched so many movies since then and yet I'm like still able to hold that big appreciation and big love for this movie that just like goes to show how it's going to continue to what's it called to survive the test of time.
Yeah. And it will. It's one of those movies where I'm still waiting for a movie to kind of top
Yeah.
this type of film, right? Where there's story, but the CGI is also amazing, and it makes you want to create a relationship with like the protagonist, which in this case is Caesar, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Luis, are
But
you
yeah,
ready?
that's
Oh,
on the review itself. But yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
The review, awesome movie, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. All these movies, but obviously I'm biased to it. But
Yeah.
just giving my
It's always
opinion
good to
anyway.
know your bias, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
biases. Yeah. And it's
I'm biased.
okay. Like these movies obviously mean a lot to Luis.
Uh huh.
And like I remember him watching them like we were at like the like in
Uh
front of
huh.
our library in YouTube yeah, ooh, I was about to drop a location there. Our
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
university and
Uh huh.
he was just in there and like I was like, "Hey man, what you watching?" He goes, "Oh, I'm watching Bryce about Donald Planet Apes, bro." Like, and I'm like, "What the hell is this, bro?" And I was just like, "This
Yeah,
is great." Like, like I remember I have clear
yeah.
memories of that, but
Yeah.
Luis,
You know a movie's so good when your Mexican parents from Mexico also love this film and they know all the characters and they
yeah,
know it's that. You know what I mean? Like that's when you know it's like a movie that just like
transcends,
escapes like
yeah.
even language. Yeah, even transcends language where it's like, dude, even they love this movie. And they always quote it from time to time. They'll be like, "Oh, Luis Caesar." I'm like, "No." They'll like say
Caesar.
something like that, which is funny. Like
Yeah,
they'll quote it and then they're,
yeah. I like
Spanish speaking folks.
through my head, like even all this time that I haven't watched this film, like I'm always remembering apes together, strong. Like it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
But Luis,
Or humans kill Caesar, apes. They rise together. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
cool.
Well, Luis, are you
Mm.
ready, man?
I am ready. Let's go.
Well, this is our conversation on Matt Reeves' Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Well, Luis, we opened the film to an interesting sight. I would say
Hmm.
that I love the way that we enter Rise of the Planet of the Apes, really, going into the situation with the humans. And in
Hmm.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, we open to see 10 years later how the apes have progressed. Caesar has a family. His wife is sick though, and she's. It seems that she's having complications giving birth, having after giving birth to his new son. Which,
Hmm.
by the way, what an adorable little monkey! Oh my god,
Ape,
they,
ape, ape,
yeah, ape. I'm sorry,
ape,
little ape.
ape,
Yeah,
ape.
yeah. What an adorable little ape, dude. Like that
Hmm.
thing was so cute. They didn't have to make it that cute, man.
No, I know, right?
Yeah, yeah. I I was just so amazed by that. Like it just looked so cute. But we see how they progressed. Of course, Maurice is there, and it seems that like, that Maurice has taken a very like elder role to well, I don't know what to call it, like the village or the colony of apes.
The community, yeah.
Yeah, the community. Yeah, the community of apes. Like Maurice is taking an elder role. Koba. At first, Koba seems to be showing how much loyalty he has to Caesar, and Koba says like, if Caesar wants me to go to war, I will go to war. If Caesar wants
Hmm.
me to stay here, I will stay here, because the apes run into a little bit of a problem. Ash, who is the son of Rocket, and Caesar's son, who is called, what's his name, dude? Bright Eyes. Bright Eyes, right?
Right, as yeah, because he
Yeah,
was the
which
first. Hmm.
yeah, which I believe is the name of his mom, of Caesar's mom,
Hmm.
was Bright Eyes. Yeah, and Bright Eyes go off and they kind of get lost, and on their way back, they're walking back. They find a pair of travelers who are supposedly, what's it called? They're alone, but we realize that they're actually part of a commune, of a compound of like the last surviving pair of last surviving humans in San Francisco.
Right.
And Rocket's son Ash sadly gets shot because they scare one of the humans, and it starts this kind of like snowball effect of where the loyalties lie, and it really does start to create tension and a big challenge in the leadership of Caesar, and especially the effects that the simian flu has had, not just to the humans, but the perception of the apes. Because what I think was just genius to start this film off was having all of those world leaders talking about, the simian flu. And then you have a little bit of like what the media is saying about the simian flu, and kind of like, in a way, not outwardly saying that we blame the apes, but like it's kind of saying we're blaming the apes. And I guess our first topic of conversation here, because I know I want our last one to be Koba. I want us to, every one of these movies, I want us to have a big conversation on specific characters. And
Right.
like last week we did our big conversation on Caesar. And obviously I
Hmm.
think we're going to talk a lot about Caesar in this one, but I think
Hmm.
I would like for us to have a really good last final conversation at the end about Koba. But I want us
Sure.
to start with the simian flu, and really like the parallels watching it now as somebody who we've already lived through a big pandemic as COVID-19 happened, right? And I
Right.
was just like the way that they really brought this on, man, like the whole simian flu and the whole aspect to the film. What
Hmm.
did you think about that?
I thought it was real, uh, realistic, in terms of what we would go through if we were going through a pandemic. How humanity would transcend, race and cultural differences and stuff like that to try to survive. Right. I mean, in an ideal situation, right? The
Yeah,
people who do survive, um, they group in together to try to fight the common good or the common battle, right? Which is, I guess, in this case, the apes. So when they showed how some humans would, react differently to the, I mean, they never really explained though how it is that some humans have that immunity, but I guess it's something like that all humans have, right? I guess some people have compromised immunity, so you know that they're not going to last through that, or some have genetic predispositions and things like that.
mm-hmm.
But I would have liked a little bit of an explanation on how it is that some people actually survive and others didn't, right?
Yeah,
I think that would have been kind of like interesting to know, especially if like an elapsed year of like 10 years have happened.
yeah,
It's like what did that community do in the meantime, right? What did they research? I mean, I'm sure they had smart individuals in that group that were in the immune, pile.
yeah,
Um so I think I would have really liked to see that a little bit more in terms of like what is the simian flu and why can some actually, survive it and why can others not. And I think they explained that a little bit more in the next movie, but not in this film, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken. Yeah.
It's something that I saw too.
Hmm.
And of course, now us having actually gone through this pandemic, I think we
Hmm.
understand how some people kind of had an immunity to it and how some didn't.
Right.
But
Hmm.
I put myself in the shoes of 2014, and
Exactly.
how like
Hmm.
the last pandemic that we went through in 2014 was in 2009 with the H1N1,
Right.
and we're kind of like, okay, well, we still to this day a lot of stuff is kind of like unknown, or really confusing and jarring about H1N1
Mhm.
that we weren't able to really pay attention to it that well.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of it also kind of
Mhm.
falls into the way that we reacted as a society to H1N1. We were kind of just
That's
like,
true.
oh, it's just a joke. Like, this is nothing. Like, it's not going to, you know, but like people actually died due to
A lot of
H1N1.
people.
A
A
lot of
lot.
people died.
I think the death toll was similar to what the COVID-19 was.
Yeah.
And having been so many years and stuff like that, we still don't know the origins of it. I
Yeah.
think it was in the news like, oh, we got it from pigs,
Pigs.
or
Yeah.
a human and a pig doing something inappropriate or something like that. They came up with the most craziest
Yeah.
things, but we still don't have a clue of why it is that it started, or
Yeah.
if it was manufactured, or I don't know, right? And then there
Yeah.
was like obviously like the cracks thinking this is a manufactured thing, and
Yeah.
et cetera, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of parallels in this movie
Yeah.
that show how humans react to like a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And I did like, or I do enjoy in these types of movies where like humanity just kind of like says, all right, fuck everything that we're going through, all our problems, and let's just be together because we're all human. Does it make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. And
It takes a pandemic to do it, but sometimes it's like, okay, we are all human, right?
yeah, we all are human. And I found that to be like really interesting because like, you know, even then,
Mm-hmm.
humans kind of show like how they're willing to still turn a blind eye to like the other, and be like, yo, we've come together, but these apes, like the minute we see that these apes are a thing, oh, we need to start what's it called, learning how to use the guns again. We need to start practicing it and like
Right.
making sure their artillery is up, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, like you all managed to bound together after this common, what's it
Mm-hmm.
called, this common goal to make sure that we get power back and that we make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we have running water and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yet you have been like, ready to kind of put the apes aside and be like, okay, but now we have a common enemy if it were to present itself as a common enemy. And that's a lot to do with the way that kind of like the simian flu gets introduced in this movie, right? With like the
Mm-hmm.
way that they're kind of like talking about it on the media and stuff, and it's just like
Right.
this way of like of this like persuasive language, that
Fear
doesn't,
mongering.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
fear mongering that doesn't outwardly tell you like the apes are bad, we need to get rid of them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like saying like it seems that it came from this ape, ape, and that it passed through this one scientist who was, you know, sneezed on by an ape, and they're like the
Mm-hmm.
apes left and they separated themselves, and it's like the use of language there and how it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
telling all of these people like, you know, we're not telling
Mm-hmm.
you to outwardly blame the apes, but we're kind of trying to persuade you to blame them in a way.
Mm-hmm. And then using the attack on the bridge, and this incident, and then that's how it kind of leads to, let's isolate ourselves from us and them, like he had
Yeah,
mentioned. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And one thing that like I think was what's obviously this is not how it happened in the real world. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
COVID did not ravage the streets and have like things just broken apart. But I did think that it was really interesting to see the way that we
Mm-hmm.
contrasted life in Rise of the Planet of the Apes and the way that that looked compared to how ravaged the streets were, how they were looted, and how just broken down everything was. Like you saw neighborhoods that looked so beautiful in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it looks like a complete war zone.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a battle between the apes and the humans. That
Yeah.
was all human. That was all human, because at that time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the apes just moved to the redwoods and
Mhm.
they just settled over there. So the humans were the ones fending for themselves and creating their own destruction, which is like ravaging the population, energy, things like that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a human made product, or a human made consequence, right? It was maybe brought on by the apes, but the consequences is all from the humans, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I really wanted to talk about that because I mean I
Hmm.
think it's like a really, you have to talk about the pandemic in this film, like it's a really big thing because it's what causes
Yeah.
the whole chain of events to
You know what
happen.
I thought? You know what I thought? I thought we were gonna go through something similar through the COVID thing, like enough to where I'm like, dude, I bought like N95 like the huge masks, like the over the things, like gowns, specialized thing. I was thinking about getting a bunker. Like I was going crazy when this whole first thing happened. I was like, dude, it's gonna be every man for himself, and we're all gonna
You watch too
die.
much movies, man. You
I
watch too
did, and
much
then I
movies.
got it, and I was like, fuck, this is it.
Yeah,
Tell my mom I love her. Just and
yeah,
that that's not a joke itself, right? Obviously, a lot of
yeah,
people died, but that's in the thinking of a person, right? When we did not know anything, right?
yeah,
Dude, it was insane, dude. It was like the scariest time to be alive.
yeah. Cause like we're being
March
exposed to this.
13,
Yeah,
2022. 2020, I'm sorry. Yeah.
2020, and just
Yeah.
you're being exposed and like all the information and like that's what I think people really didn't understand, like really didn't really realize here, because like
Mhm.
and yes, I understand like all the misinformation that was being thrown around, and
Mhm.
but like both sides of the media really had a hand in playing like, oh, I'm going to stir up here and I'm going to stir up there, and it's just like at the end of the
Mhm.
day, no one had a single idea what was going on, and we
Mm-mm.
had the audacity to really like create multiple narratives and be like, this is how it's going to work, this is how it's going to work, when like even the scientists themselves were just like, guys, we're barely working through this. And
Yeah.
like in the constructs of this film, it's kind of like the same thing, and that's kind of like what the population of the humans at the compound kind of
Mhm.
led to believe, where
Yep.
they were like, some of us were here just to survive, and that's why we kind of ended up here, and that's why we're kind of bound together so much, because like at the end of the day, that's all they had to do was just survive.
I agree.
Yeah,
Good parallels to our real life, right? I
yeah,
think. I think if humanity, you know, would have let would have like reacted the way we reacted, I think we could have ended up in that situation. Like maybe like not in terms of people dying, but ravaging the streets and things like
yeah,
that. Because we were getting pretty close to that in the major cities, right? We were
yeah,
running off the grocery stores, remember?
yeah.
We wanted to buy some eggs or we want to buy some milk, and it
Toilet
just
paper,
did not.
water.
Toilet paper, water, even like people price gouging, like
Yeah,
minute things where you're just like, wow. And you saw the selfishness in humanity,
yeah,
right? Like selling those boxes of Kleenex or those boxes of
yeah,
toilet paper for like double the retail price.
yeah. It just, I mean, it just shows you like just the absolute horrors and the disgusting nature of humans sometimes.
I
And
know.
what's it called? It was interesting to see the parallels here. Like obviously it wasn't the same, but there was like really distinct parallels where I'm like, wow, in 2014 they really did get a lot of this like pretty on the
Pretty
nose.
accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
That's interesting.
yeah, but now I want to let's go ahead and go to the apes,
Transition.
because
Okay.
like the apes are like the community has grown. There's a lot of
Okay.
apes. It actually kind of like really became like clear for me how much the apes grew when they went over to the compound,
Yeah.
because like yes, you see them in their community and like they're all kind of spread around, right? And you're just like, okay, like yeah, they grew, but it isn't until they really go to the compound that you
Mhm.
noticed how many apes have been produced now. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my god, they in the span of 10 years, they were fucking, bro.
They were fucking and teaching those young ones
Yeah,
sign language, real language. Yeah.
yeah. And once again, it goes back to like the vision of what Caesar had for this community. He
Exactly.
wanted, what's it called? He wanted it to be a community of trust, of
Mhm.
being able to grow like language and being able to teach each other and being
Mhm.
able like just it down right
Set
back
up
at
a
it. Yeah,
society. Yeah.
yeah. Set
And
up
that's when
society.
you start seeing those societal rules, right?
Yeah,
With the apes, do
yeah,
not kill other apes, and
mm-hmm.
then etc. All the rules that they had created for themselves, trying to create that community,
Yeah,
um, was really fascinating to see. Right, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, this is the dawn of the similar parallels you can maybe
yeah,
see, like in early human civilization. Right.
yeah. And a lot of that like is based on where I felt like Caesar's family, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of warmth there when you
Mm-hmm.
get first introduced to the family, because
Mm-hmm.
just the way that he reacts to when what's it called when Bright Eyes gets scratched by
Mm-hmm.
by the bear, which by the
Mm-hmm.
way, what a great choice is to keep that scar on him throughout the whole
Mhm.
movie.
Mhm.
Um, I just found that to be so compelling, kind of like in a way of being like, like this is what my father saved me from. Like, there's no way that I feel like my father was killed. Like, I don't think my father would go down that easily. But going back, I mean, just the way that Caesar kind of approaches his family. And in a way, I think that that's a lot of what he learned from, James Franco's family. Like, the way that James Franco treated his dad and how
Mhm.
he, you know, it was very hard for James Franco to see his father go through that. But like at the end of the day, he loved his father a lot,
Mhm.
enough to want to save him like that, to test him with an unregulated drug, to be able to
Mhm.
give him that and be able to help him out. And like I feel like Caesar kind of approaches that, and that's kind of why Caesar has a lot of faith in the humans because of how he grew up. But like it obviously parallels really different, juxtaposes really different to the way that Koba sees the humans. But
Mhm.
in the sense of the family, there was just a lot of warmth there, like just the way he loved and cared for his wife. Like where you genuinely felt, and like a lot of that right goes to Andy Serkis's incredible performance, where like you
Mhm.
really do feel how Caesar is very devastated that his wife is dying.
Is
Like,
dying. It's not like in real life animal society, right, where it's like we mate for procreation and that's it.
mm-hmm,
But now that they have that intelligence, they've created these emotional bonds with each other, and you can see that. and
mm-hmm,
and so when she does get sick, he's like, oh, help my wife, like help her. Humans, like, I know you just, you lost. Well, we'll get to that part, but when the humans, or I'm sorry, when Caesar loses the trust on the humans again, when Caesar finds that gun
the
and stuff
gun.
like that and says, go, whatever, or leave now. um and then they go back and see the wife that's sick. He still, like, has that, you know what, I'm gonna put my pride aside. I know the humans can help. I love my family. Come and help. And they did, and that was really cool to see the dynamic that the family is. It starts at the family, right, essentially, and then
Mm,
he builds his community around it. So
yeah,
it's really cool to see.
yeah, and it just like exactly like it starts at the family, and that's how he kind of grows that love for the community. And and that's such a like a heartbreaking part where like you obviously because like to me that one guy already had it out for the apes from the beginning of it. Like he didn't like the apes at all.
Hmm.
Um, he had and like that's where, to be fair, like honestly, that's where all of this like hate for each other kind of comes from. It's like unknown fear that you have for the other, and it's just like that's what that guy did. It's not that he hated them because he felt like a really strong hate. He had a fear for those apes. He didn't know exactly what was going down,
Hmm.
and it doesn't justify that hate he has for the apes. But he's just like, he was scared.
Yeah.
He, he reacted badly at first, and he didn't know whether Caesar and his son were gonna carry a grudge against him. And as humans, especially us who live like in the Western hemisphere in the Western world, we always are kind of taught to put ourselves first, and we're kind of taught like we're very individualistic, and we're like
That's true.
for the good, like, and that's kind of like what that guy was like really big part of him because like he wasn't like Gary Oldman. Like Gary Oldman,
Hmm.
yes, he was telling them to stock up and start working with each
Hmm.
other to like, but at the end of the day, Gary Oldman did what had to be done for his community.
Hmm.
But this guy, the one who brings the gun, was just simply thinking about himself.
Just trying to protect his own life, not
Yeah,
not whatever. Yeah, I feel that's so true. That's a good perspective. And I think, like you had mentioned, it's all like a Western perspective, right? Me, me, me. What can I get out of it? What can I do to succeed? What can I do to protect myself? Rather than a sense of community that you see in other, even Latin American cultures and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I always give the example to my friends like, dude, you could be walking down the street in Mexico and some random dude who you don't even know is going to
hmm.
say hi to you.
Yeah.
And he's just
or
like,
or 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 help you, like, for
yeah,
example. And even this is in the US too, but it's more Mexico based. But back home, dude, if you get a flat tire on the side of the road, like, somebody's gonna stop and help you.
someone's going to
But you
stop me.
can't say that in every part of
No, bro. No,
the
hell no.
Western culture, like where it's the US, right?
Yeah.
You won't see that. Nobody will stop. Nobody will come
Yeah.
and help you or aid you. You probably would fear them if they stopped. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like that's kind of like how it rubs off in this film, and it kind of shows it's like
Hmm.
you have this subset of people, the humans, who are obviously very communal based, and like they really do want what's best for each other. But there's also those in there who are like, no, no, like this is about me. Like I need to find out what these apes are doing. Like I need to protect myself from them, and I need to what's it called? Like before you can even sit down and have a conversation with the apes and
Hmm.
realize that like the way that you look at the situation at hand with the simian flu is the
Hmm.
exact way that Caesar feels about this. And he simply just wants to make sure that he's protecting his apes, but also taking into consideration that the humans need the dam. They need
Yeah.
to build this because he needs them to. Because what he said was really, really smart. If we don't let them in, they're going to come in by force and they're going to want to, what's it called, kill us here. If I
Hmm.
don't, like, literally, Caesar is damned if I do, damned if I don't. You know, he tells them to fuck off, they're gonna come back with force. He tells them to come in, it's gonna go down the way it goes down in the film. And that's kind of what Koba doesn't understand as well.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, we're gonna talk about Koba later.
Hmm.
But just the way that it's kind of portrayed like that with the individualistic look of it, and just I don't know. I thought that was such an interesting perspective that they brought to the movie because you know it obviously contrasts itself so well with just everybody else in the movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, to the point that everybody else in that group was actually really comfortable with kicking that guy out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Even the guy was like pushing him to his car. He's like, "You
yeah,
stay in there," and shit like that. And then
yeah,
he stayed there the rest of the time in the car
yeah, yeah,
until Koba, killed him or whatever. But
yeah.
yeah.
You could tell he was done. He was done with that guy. Like I look, we we don't get a lot of context what happened before this movie, but I'm sure that that guy was really just
Uh
pushing it.
huh.
He was pushing it already. Like they were
Yeah.
ready to
Yeah.
kick his ass out of that community by then. But I would also like to say that not a lot of people give Jason Clark his just dues in movies, and especially
Hmm.
in this one. I love Jason Clark in this movie. He is so good. Even the bad movies that I see Jason Clark in, like I don't know if you ever watched the Pet Cemetery remake.
And yes, I did watch it
Yes,
actually. Yeah,
heaping pile of trash.
it
But
was. It was a horrible movie.
Jason
Very
Clark
forgettable. Uh huh.
is pretty damn good in that movie.
Yeah.
Like that guy's actually a pretty talented actor, and within this movie he really does contrast well with Caesar. And I like because like
Mhm.
he's so different to Caesar, right? Because he has a son and his
Mhm.
wife has lost his daughter, whereas Caesar, what's it called, he lost his family, but he has another family here. He has a wife, he has a son, and he has a new son
Mhm.
that's what's called it's growing up. It's very different from Caesar, but they're both family men. Like they're people who want, they're just people who want to put they're people in an ape person and an ape who want to put the family first, and they
Mhm.
want to do things like that. And I found that the way that they contrasted that to be so well.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Good point on that one.
Yeah. Um, well, I think we can do. Let's talk about Caesar as a leader. I think that's a really
Okay.
big thing.
Sure.
Because also, like, come on, y'all, we're not gonna sit around here and think that it was just a coincidence that he named him after that they named him after Caesar, Julius Caesar, of course.
Mhm.
What's it called? There's coincidence there. This
Mhm.
man's leadership was gonna get tested, just like the way that Caesar's reign was also tested
Yeah.
during the Roman Empire. Um, so Caesar, Caesar's naive for his own good sometimes. Caesar, look, Caesar has too much trust sometimes, and
Yes, he
that's
does.
yeah, and that's part that bites him in the ass. But also, it's what helps him grow as an ape at the end of this film, because he realizes that as much as he tries, he can lead people. He can't lead apes that are already broken, and that's really kind of what we learn when he brings
Mhm.
Koba. Is that Koba is so broken beyond repair that he can't lead Koba to be a better version of himself because he's so lost. And I thought that like how fast so many people were ready to switch up on him
Mhm.
when they're like, "Oh, Caesar's dead." Like everybody was just able to be like. It just goes to show just how loose of a grip Caesar had on the community. Even
Mhm.
though he's done a lot, he's taught them language. He's brought them to a habitat where they're actually able to thrive. They're no
Mhm.
longer test subjects. But when it mattered the most, like leaving his son alone to go help the humans, to the apes, that was going to look really bad.
Mhm.
That's like the equivalent of like the United States being in a terrible situation and our president goes to what's it called? Help. I don't know, some foreign country that is,
Let's say
yeah,
this better example. It's like when Ted Cruz left, and we had a
yes,
freezing
exactly,
storm here in
yeah.
winter. Yeah.
We had a freezing storm and Ted Cruz decided to go to Cancun.
Our
Yeah,
governor. I mean,
yeah,
not our governor, our senate. Yeah.
senator. Yeah. Um, so I want to hear from you, Luis. What did you make of the way that Caesar's leadership grew in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
I think initially, when if we go back to the previous movie to this, I think Caesar's leadership was definitely shown in when he created this community, right? But like you had mentioned, in this film, we get to see a lot of test of power, right? Even in the part where they're fighting the power plant, into a more primal kind of thing. It's like let's fight physically. Whoever fights and whoever wins physically, that's gonna be who's the leader. But even when he won, Caesar won, people still had that, or I'm sorry, some of the apes kind of had that like, oh, like okay, this is how it's gonna go. And then at the end of the movie, when when they're fighting again, you could still see the apes kind of being like, okay, well, this is where we're gonna see who physically is a stronger leader and who's gonna able to lead us. And then later on, eventually in the next movie, we'll see the same thing where we still have followers of Koba and we still
Yeah,
have followers of Caesar, and we'll eventually see that later. But
yeah,
to go more on this point, I feel like Caesar's leadership was hanging on by a thread in this movie,
yeah.
like very, very leadership, because you would assume that the son would then take his place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't. He didn't. Or even someone else, second in command, like I would assume
Maurice
Rocket
or
or
Maurice.
Maurice, or someone with a little bit more intelligence and someone
Yeah,
more like-minded, like Caesar would kind of lead the group. But everyone was so in fear of their habitat burning down, of Caesar dying, that they said, you know what, let's resort to violence and let's follow Koba, the
yeah,
word of Koba.
yeah.
And so you see that a lot throughout this film. Um, Yeah, that's I just blanked out right now. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're
But
good.
I
I understand. I understand where you're going, and like
mhm,
into an extent, that is also a really interesting parallel in the way that like countries fall under totalitarian regimes, and like the
right.
way that they fall under like fascism and stuff like that.
Mhm,
It's like it's so unstable that you have this one person who can like really stir up the crowd and really get them going and be like, okay, let's put our trust in him, and then obviously what's it called, we see what happens when they put their
mhm,
trust in Koba. But I think it was really interesting that you bring up like maybe it was gonna be Bright Eyes who would
mhm,
take his place, or
mhm,
maybe Rocket or
mhm,
Maurice. I think to me, um, I think it would have been better if they had Rocket, because I feel like Rocket was really the one who had a complete shift in character within
mhm.
in Rise
That's
and
true.
in Dawn, because like
Mhm,
you can really see that Rocket grew a massive respect for Caesar, like
mhm,
massive respect for Caesar, where he was able to say like, I trust this man with my life. I am able to, if this man wants me to go to war, I will go to war. If he
mhm,
tells me to sit down here and wait, I will sit down here and wait. Whereas like Maurice was also, he was intelligent, but he also had some instances where he was kind of like curious about more about the world. He
mhm,
goes over to the kid, he reads the book that he's like learning
mhm,
how to read, and like you can tell that Maurice isn't completely there yet to really be a leader yet, but like he's still very curious about that, and sometimes that curiosity can like lead you down the wrong path. Whereas
mhm.
like I felt that Rocket was the one who was like, I have studied Caesar, I have seen
Right.
what Caesar has put me through, and like I obviously have this respect for Caesar, where I'm like, okay,
Mhm,
if it would have gone to Rocket, I think that the apes would have been pretty good. I think it would
I
have been
think they would have
fine.
been fine. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know who maybe you think, but I that's kind of like how I felt about where the shift in power would have gone to.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Rocket would probably have been the next in line, and if not, his son
Yeah,
would have been there. But we didn't, obviously get to see any of that because after that, he was, caged up as a loyalist, and him and
yeah,
Maurice and everyone else into that little bus, right?
yeah. And
Hmm.
and isn't that just wild?
Hmm.
That really shows the similarities between apes and humans. Like
Yeah, I know.
the way
I was,
that, like, of course, like I said in the last film I said, like, okay, humans have a tendency to, like, we're gonna separate ourselves, we're gonna move away from each other sometimes, and, like, to me that's still something that, like, I really want to explore within my
hmm
movies, where I'm like, why do we separate ourselves? Like, why do we want to move away from each other? Why do we choose to, like, live in, like, the middle of nowhere sometimes, where we don't have access to, like, humanity? Because sometimes, like, as bad as it sounds, y'all, I know that it's hard to deal with people sometimes. Like, especially working, like, you would just be like like retail really just challenges you in the way that you deal with people. But,
hmm
like, at the end of the day, humans to humans. We need to live together. We need to, you know, congregate with each other and be able to, like, progress as a species. And that was one thing that I was like I noticed within Rise, and, like, in this, like, our need to want to, like, protect ourselves. It's very what's it called, similar between the apes and the humans. The way that we protect land is very similar to the way that apes and humans, but, like, especially that we cage enemies of the state in a way. We
yeah.
lock them up, and I was like, wow. Like, of course, these are the things that we evolved from, right? Like, of course, there
Hmm.
will be similarities, but, like, how quick Koba was to say, lock them up. We don't, we, what's it called? If they're not behind me, they're enemies of the state. Let's put them in bars. And I'm just like, like,
I know
can
they
you
didn't
see?
even. Yeah, they didn't even give him a chance to prove their loyalty, and then you could see how you can see that also when I think it was Rocket's son, right, that got killed by Koba.
Yes.
When he's like, I think Koba goes, he grabs the pole and he's like, kill them, and then he's like, Caesar wouldn't want this, right? Signing or whatever,
Yeah.
and then he's like, oh, okay, and then he grabs them and then he pushes them over the ledge. I'm like, dude, that's exactly what a fucking villain would do. It's
Yeah.
exactly what a fucking human would do, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the like threats that he saw, fear mongering,
Yeah.
especially fear mongering within the apes. Like, you just saw me throw Rocket's son over the edge,
You think I
over
won't
the
do that to
ledge.
you? Yeah.
What about you? Who else is next? And then everyone else was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
oh shit.
and that's a big way. That's a big part of this movie. In that, what
Hmm.
fear has to play. Like we talked about in the beginning a little bit,
Hmm.
but, like, that is exact. Koba says it himself. He says fear is the only way that, like, he, in a way, he said, like, fear is the only way that he can lead.
Hmm.
And to an extent, like, and I understand we keep teasing the Koba, what's it called, conversation here, and I promise y'all we're gonna get there real soon.
Hmm.
But, like, a lot of these apes, especially the ones that came with Caesar, not the new ones, they've all were afraid. They were afraid of what the humans would do to them. They were afraid of how, but, like, Caesar was able to kind of, like, mellow out those fears a bit for them and be like, we're safe here. 10 years are passing already. We're not being intervened by the humans, and obviously when the humans show up in this one, they're like, a lot of them are scared. I mean, you hear them go like that. It's straight up fear. Like they straight up
Yeah.
feel fear. Um,
Yeah, so that's actually an intimidation factor that apes try to do.
yeah,
So they'll puff out their chests,
yeah,
big breaths, and they'll trying to intimidate the other thing, but it's because of their own fear. It's that
yeah.
primitive, like, oh, am I in a flight, or am I in a
Fight or
fight
flight. Yeah,
situation, or am I in situation,
yeah.
exactly. And so you'll see that exactly, wait, like you had just perfectly mentioned, when they saw the humans for the first time, they're like,
Like, like, I'm obviously afraid,
mm-hmm,
and, you know, to an extent, a lot of those apes were able to, trust
mm-hmm,
Caesar and his decisions, and but, like, of course, the leadership was hanging by a thread. but like
Mhm.
fear was a big part of it, and it's like it's a big part for the humans too.
Mhm.
The reason why they start to arm themselves again, they start
Mhm.
working on the range, is
Mhm.
because they're afraid of the apes.
But can we go back to the human element? Let's
Sure.
say me and you, this was a real situation, and we were a part of the immune, and this was a real life situation. We are the humans in this case, right? We're not the apes. Would you have reacted the same way?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so too, right?
Yeah.
It's all fear. Like that's how society's driven, right? Isn't
Yeah.
it?
But I think that's where I think like to me where Gary Oldman, who's obviously the leader of this community,
Yeah.
should have had a talk with Caesar and be able to say like, "Hey, I am going to start making sure that what's it called so we can build a trust, and trust always starts with communication, and tell them,
Mm,
you know, Caesar, we are afraid of you all, and we are going to start arming ourselves again and what's it called training with our weapons,
mhm.
but that doesn't entirely mean that we're going to come and invade your land and kill you all, because that's exactly what Koba his first like assumption was, and that's where he goes back, and that's where he gets everybody to start getting scared, and that's like to me like what Gary Oldman should have done was that, and like I understand, you know, both of the apes and the humans are putting their communities first. You know, obviously Caesar's the only one ape in there where he really wants to make sure that the humans are okay too towards the end of the film, but
Mhm.
like in the beginning, both of these communities are putting themselves first.
Right.
But
Like like if
anybody, any sane person would try to do.
anybody.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we can also see this parallel kind of in real life right now with the whole I don't know if you've noticed like the new UFO sightings and stuff like and us shooting them down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like this is all fear. Like we're reacting to
Yeah.
situations. Like this is all out of fear. But like
Yeah.
let's say, you know, like
Yeah.
if we put ourselves in that perspective, it's like, dude,
Yeah.
we are the apes or we are the humans that are reacting like that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Fear drives us all.
Though I did find it was really smart
Mm,
because humans will always believe that anything that's below humans are just stupid, and they
true.
don't realize that some of these creatures are smarter than us, and that's why it worked so well for Koba to go to that gun range and be like, and act like a
Oh.
dumbass, and he's like, "Oh no, silly ape. He's just one of
Mm-hmm.
the ones that got lost. He didn't get the gas. He didn't get
Yeah.
intelligent." And like, you guys are so dumb. Like, you guys are so dumb. Like, you
Like we
really,
literally just talked about us encountering talking apes, and one just came, and you think he's just like an odd one out where he's just dumb. He's just like, "Ooh,
yeah,
ooh, ooh, ooh." No, it's probably one of those apes where where they're highly intelligent. Yeah. So,
yeah.
but that's
But
where the dumb humans are.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it, like I said, it all comes down to trust. It comes
Mm-hmm.
down to the trust that the apes have for
Mm-hmm.
each other, but it's gonna come down to the trust between the apes and the humans. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we're gonna have a lot of a loss of that trust within the
Mm-hmm.
next film in War, where everything really starts to boil over.
Mm-hmm.
But I can now say that we can get into this conversation about Koba.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to talk about Koba. Oh, poor Koba. Poor
What can
Koba.
we say? What can we say?
Yeah. First of all, I will just say this. I sympathize with Koba. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who can see Rise of the Planet of the Apes and tell me that you don't feel that for Koba and understand why he ends up the way he is, I think you need to rewatch the movie and have a little bit more empathy for this man and for this ape. Because, like, yeah, man, he got tested on. He got the worst end of it, dude. Like, he was hurt so bad, and he has a very big disdain for the humans. He has a disdain for the human that is rooted in his fear of what that in the fear that they're gonna do the same thing they did to him again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like obviously like it leads to him going down on a self-destructive spree that is going to cause more harm than good because he literally starts a war. He literally
Mm-hmm.
starts the war. But how do you feel? So like, what do you think
Let
about
me.
the way that we
Uh,
kind of introduced Takoba here? Yeah,
so yeah, so Cobra's such an interesting character, right? Because like Caesar, he has the potential to also be a leader, right? different ways of expressing that, but he also in the same right has the ability to lead. And so when we're introduced to Koba, we were introduced to him to, like you had mentioned in the first movie, um, as this kind of like test subject, kind of things like that. Like there's a lot of things wrong with him. He's distrustful. He's yeah. So to go back to Koba, I think it's very interesting the way we're presented with him, especially in this movie, right? Because we can see the perspective of what he's gone through, right? We can see that Caesar is kind of, and I'm not going to say the word weak, but you can see how he could be weak, right? Empathizing with the humans too much. They've betrayed his trust more than once, multiple times. He's seen what they're capable of, and Koba, in a sense, also just like Caesar wants to create that sense of community, but
Mm-hmm.
it's apes, right? Only apes.
Yeah.
We want to live. I want to protect my ape family, and so it's just kind of like a juxtaposition between Caesar's leadership skills and Koba's leadership
Yeah.
skills, right? Uh, Koba is more, we need to fight for where we're at. We need to stay on guard in case these humans come back. And what are we gonna do first? Strike first, ask questions later. And Caesar's more like, well, no, let's be more peaceful. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's find a way to, which is, I guess, Koba represents the human spirit more,
Yeah.
and Caesar is just more like what what we could be, right? I guess what we could be trusting in others and stuff like that. But I feel like Koba expresses the human element very much because he had a more bad experience with what humanity was able to
Mm-hmm.
provide for him, right?
Yeah.
So I like you had mentioned too. I empathize with Koba a lot because it's he's a product of his environment, and so how do you expect him to change, or how do you
Yeah.
expect him to act any differently, right? He knows what the humans are capable of, and he knows that if he gets in that position again, they're going to continue to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So
And like even Caesar brings up, I think it was Bright Eyes who asked him like, why does what's it called Koba hate humans so much? And then
mhm
Caesar tells him, because Koba was only taught hate by the humans.
mhm
He d- Koba didn't have James Franco in
mhm
his family. He wasn't shown the love that humans can provide,
mhm
and he wasn't shown that like that there are good humans out there.
right
He was literally only abused and only hurt, and he what's it called? He's only ever seen the bad side of humans, and like that's why I empathize with him because
mhm
like yes, what he does is bad. Like he launches a full scale war. He
mhm
what's it called? Kills one of his fellow apes, and what's it called? Pushes him off the ledge, and
mhm
he shoots Caesar, and he
mhm
does all these things that are terrible. Like he breaks the fundamental rule of what Caesar has built here, and is that apes do not kill apes. And yet, like I said, like I empathize with him because he's a very deeply broken character. Like and to me, he is the most perfect character to juxtapose Caesar
mhm
because he's so broken, bro. He's so broken. He Caesar can't fix Koba. He can't.
mm
And I think Caesar realizes that, and that's why he has to kill him. Because like he has to break his own rule because he realizes that like as much as I want to get to this guy, I mean get to this
mhm
ape, as much as I want to make sure that he changes, he's broken beyond repair, and he is willing to put my community at risk and make sure that they're hurt, and it's not gonna work out that way.
mm
Koba is just too destructive. Um
yeah. And so when he dies at the end, it's like bittersweet, right? It's like,
yeah.
damn, even Caesar broke his own rule,
Yeah.
right? Even Caesar
Yeah.
broke his own rule to be able to maintain that society, or try to keep what was left of his society.
Yeah. And like just like them going to the what's it called like when they're storming the building, right? I think it was
Mhm.
it's a government building, and like what's it called? Bright Eyes is like saying like I don't think we should do this. Like I don't
Mhm.
like what's it called? Oh, it wasn't Bright Eyes. I'm sorry. That was that was what's it called, Rocket's son, right? Rocket's
Rocket
yeah,
Son.
Ash.
Mhm.
Ash was like, I don't think we should do this. Like, this is not the way.
Mhm.
And he just grabs him, drags him across, and
Mhm.
he's just like puts him there, and it's like holy crap, Rock,
Mhm.
like Koba, you are so brutal, like, and that's his leadership skill. His leadership skill is fear. He rules by fear. He doesn't want to make. He wants to make sure that everybody, what's it called, fears him, because that's the way that they're gonna follow him. And like, to an extent, it worked because everybody went to freaking battle for him. They
Mhm.
go and blow up that compound. They what's it called, kill a lot of them. They managed to actually make the what's it called, the humans retreat. Like, it works, but it's
Yeah.
not the right way to do it. It's not the way that Caesar has taught you.
Mhm.
Um, and just it's really bittersweet, man.
Mhm.
I feel the way too. It's like really
And
bittersweet.
even I would say even Caesar feels that because even right before Koba fell, I mean, was like hanging on the ledge. I don't know if you remember that part at the very end of the movie. Even Caesar's like trying to grab his hand. He even still believes like maybe I can fix him. And then even Kova has that realization where it's like, no,
Just
I'm
kill
not.
him.
And
Yeah,
he's like, fuck. And he like, let go,
let's go. Yeah,
which is like, I guess like an honorable death that you can say also for Koba, right? It's like
yeah,
he knows when he was defeated, and he knows that essentially this is the end for my apes. If I, this might be the end for my apes as well, because
yeah,
Caesar's gonna lead them down a bad path or whatever.
yeah. I mean, to an extent, like the influence of Koba is going to be very present in War for the Planet of the Apes.
Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
that's
there's a
what I wanted.
very
That's what I wanted to hint at too, in
yeah,
case people
there's a
didn't.
clear influence of his of what
Mm-hmm.
he preached,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I watched this film, and I just like, to me, the first time I watched this film, like, Koba really stood out to me. But this time I was really able to sit with what Koba was going through, and like be
Mm-hmm.
able to like to really like realize, like, oh my god, man, since the beginning this guy was lying through his teeth. This ape was lying through his teeth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he he didn't trust Caesar. He didn't
Mm-mm.
care about Caesar. I think Koba appreciated that Caesar, you know,
Did what he did
did
for
what
him.
he did
Mm-hmm.
for him, and like took him out of where he was at.
Mm-hmm.
But it never felt to me that Koba trusted Caesar. And
Yeah, yeah. Because if you think about it too, like if you go back to the movie Rise, it's not like they were in the same compound, right?
mm-hmm,
So there wasn't that like level of, okay, we defeated our common enemy, which was
mm-hmm,
Draco Malfoy's character or whatever. We defeated our enemy and we escaped and we did what we got to do. No, their first interaction was at the lab when he just
mm-hmm,
freed him, right? And so
yeah,
to him, it's like, oh, he's my savior, but I didn't get to see that rise in power that Caesar did
yeah,
for us to
yeah,
release us from this or to even start any of this, right?
yeah,
And so I feel like that's part of it too, right? Um,
yeah.
but what a great character, and also just I know we're not touching on the performance or anything like that,
But
but
oh, great
what a
performance,
great perform! Just as much as we think Andy Serkis deserved an Oscar for this one,
Koba.
Koba's, oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful facial expressions, the way he gets humbled, the way he's
Yeah,
like fearful, the way everything,
yeah.
such a great performance,
Like,
and
to me, like the part that just sticks out to me the most is when he's
mm-hmm,
like, let, like, Caesar tells him, let the humans do their work, do their
mm-hmm,
human work, and Koba just goes, points at every single scar on his body, and he's like,
mm-hmm.
human work, human
Human work,
work,
yeah, yeah.
human work, and it's
Oh,
just
dude, I'm
like,
getting goosebumps
yeah,
right now
and like
thinking about that.
you can tell
Uh huh.
how like not just angry,
Yeah.
but how sad he is.
He.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, Caesar, I have to point to myself and show you where these humans hurt me, and it's like, you don't trust me, you don't want to listen to me, and it breaks my heart every time I see that scene, because he's just like, this is what they
That,
did to me, like,
and then you can also tell that that was the last straw for Kobo, where he said, "That's it. He needs to go, or I go.
yeah,
Something's got to happen."
yeah,
And that really was. That was the breaking point where
yeah,
the trust was fallen, and Caesar drew a clear line, and
yeah,
said, "I'm siding with the humans before the needs of my own community,"
yeah,
which differed from Kobo's obviously.
yeah, yeah. But what a great character! What a great
Mm-hmm.
performance! He is Okoba's just a big part of this movie. There was no way that we could do this conversation without talking about Koba for a good like 10 minutes, man, because
Mhm.
he's so important, just as important as Caesar. And like I said, in the next movie, you are gonna see a big, big influence of what Koba had
Mhm.
on the what's it called on the apes. But do you have anything else left for Koba, or are we ready
I
to
I
wrap this
I
thing
do
up?
not. I think I'm ready to wrap it up, but just wanted to say just great performances from Koba's actor. I'm not too sure who it was. I'm not too sure, but great. Great character development, very essential to the plot of the film and how it sets up the next film too. And we'll probably even see that into the next film after that, right? With the
Yeah,
separations of factions between apes and other sections of apes, right?
yeah,
We'll definitely continue to see that. We'll
yeah.
definitely continue to see that.
His name is Toby Kebbell. He
God
was
bless
in a
Toby.
Toby Kebbell. Who did he play in Fantastic Four, man? Come on,
Oh,
please. He was in
oh
that
my.
one.
Was he in the 2004 version with
He was Doctor Doom in Fant Four Stick.
Oh.
In Fant Four Stick, the 2015 film.
Oh, the fifth. Oh, wait.
That one, the really bad one, bro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he redeems himself in
Oh, he
this movie.
100% redeemed
Yeah,
himself.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he redeemed himself.
yeah. It looks like he's been in a good amount of stuff, but yeah, he did great. He really
Yeah, he
did do a
did
great job.
fantastic. Fantastic movie.
Yeah,
Um and if I could just say one more thing, like if you guys haven't watched this movie, like and I know you guys are probably watched this movie already because you're listening to this, but if you haven't or if you don't want to, please give it a chance. It is an absolute dream of a movie. I Every time I watch it, it feels like the first time. There's always
yeah,
something to pick up.
yeah.
Always something to pick up in this movie.
Just masterfully crafted, like technical wise,
Mhm.
story wise. Its
Mhm.
pace never loses itself. Like
Mm-mm.
literally, the only complaint I have for this movie is the same thing that Luis brought up. I just wish there would have been just a little more cushion there, right? For
Mhm.
us to know about like this area, like build our world a little better.
Yeah.
But you know, everything else that comes into this film is just like, oh, what a great movie! What a great
Mhm.
movie! Yeah. If y'all were wondering, I originally rated this 4 out of 5 when I first watched this
Mhm.
movie. It went up a whole half star. It's 4.5 out of 5. It's like
Yeah.
nearly perfect to me,
Mhm.
nearly perfect. But that's been our conversation on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Luis, thank you so much for joining us, man. I can't believe it, man. We're gonna have our last discussion next week.
Oh,
But dude, it's been great. I love these movies. I'm glad that we were able to discuss it and we were able to finally do it after years of you choosing these
I
movies.
know. And give kudos to you as well. You're a great conversationalist and
Yeah.
thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Luis doesn't want to promote anything that he works
Mm-mm.
on, but just listen to our episodes, man. What's it called?
Maybe
Listen.
maybe you'll catch me in one of Raul's projects. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah, we'll
I
see.
love acting. I love filmmaking. Everything's good.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
yeah. There's a whole big back catalog of a bunch of Luis appearances on the Nerdcore. You can go into the time machine, travel back in there, and find
Yeah.
those old episodes. Listen to us on there.
Oh
Luis did
God.
Luis did a really good review of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the website. Go
Appreciate you.
check that out. Go read that. A lot of cool stuff that we did. But yeah, next week we're going to talk about the final film in this reboot trilogy, War for the Planet of the Apes. But in
Hmm.
the meantime, my friends, you all can keep up to date with me and all the things that I do on social media by following me at the Nerdy Chicano. That's on everything: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterbox, Serialized, Twitch.tv/the Nerdy Chicano as well. Make sure you keep up to date with that. If you wanted to listen to this episode way earlier than it's gonna be up, you should be on the Patreon. Patreon.com/the Nerdy Chicano. At $3, you get early access, and then at $5, you get some exclusives like video essays that I've been making. There's currently 2 up at the time, and I'm trying to work on the next ones, but go and check that out. Of course, my YouTube channel where you're watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Please leave a like on the video. Click the notification bell so you don't miss a single piece of content on the channel. If you're listening to us on a audio podcast platform, please drop a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast or Spotify podcast app. It Those are the only two at the moment that I know that you can drop a 5-star review on. I don't know about the other apps, but please do it. It helps us out a lot with like feedback. It helps us out with like sending to sponsors and stuff. So,
Hmm.
you know,
And promoting and everything.
and promoting all that
It's
stuff.
good for the algorithm. Come on, give us
That's
a
right.
star.
Give us a
Give us something. Give us a like rating.
yeah. Come
It
on,
doesn't
guys.
hurt. It's
It
two
doesn't hurt.
seconds.
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. But of course, we will see you all next week as we continue and conclude our journey through this trilogy as we look at War for the Planet of the Apes. But as always, to my renowned cinephiles and scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Catch you all on the next one, guys. Bye bye.